Yesterday, as usual, on Saturday mornings, I went to my grandchildren's Upward basketball games. They're a hoot, and they're fun to watch. Always halfway through, halftime they call it. See, I'm not very good at sports jargon. But halfway through that time, they have a program, so to speak. They have some little cheerleaders who come on, and then they have something of a devotional. And this time, it was an activity. And I thought, how appropriate, here we are at Super Bowl time, to be thinking about this particular activity. And what they did was they picked 2 volunteers from the audience, and one of them was my son-in-law, and the other volunteer was a guy who looked like a linebacker. He had muscles like this. It was scary. You know, I don't know how he lifted his arms. His arms were so heavy with muscles. And then there's John. And you have to know John. He's, some of you do, he's real tall. He's real lanky and he's real laid back, you know. And here's this guy with his sports stuff on, and I give him a football, and he looks like he's got the right thing right there in his hand. And then they hand John a football. John's standing there with his glasses, his little goatee, and his hair, and his little sweater, and he's got his sandals on with the football. He's his children's hero, I got to tell you. He's one daddy. And there's the other guy. And their goal is to take the football, you see, and make a basket. Okay? So it was really funny because there's John. You have to know John. He's just so, he's like chewing his gum. You got 30 seconds. There's this other guy. You know? And guess who makes more baskets? John! Yeah. And of course, nobody's prouder than his daughter, right? And his son sitting there so proud of Daddy because he made the basket. But the whole point was this. It was hard to hit a basket with a football, wasn't it? Because footballs are not made to play basketball with, are they? And basketballs are not made to play football with. And the whole point of the thing is that we are all called to be used for something special, weren't we? And what our call is to decide between ourselves is who are we? And how are we to be used in God's service as we wait upon the Lord? Some of us are called to be basketballs. Some of us are called to be footballs. But most of all, you're called to be who God created you to be. And you can't be anything other than that. As the late Jimmy Brock once said, Reverend Jimmy Brock once said, you can't be something you're not, no more than you can go back from where you've never been. Right? So, I don't know what you're called to be today, but God knows, and God will tell you, and then you will know. Here it is, Super Bowl Sunday. I think a lot of us are preparing for Super Bowl. But you're preparing for the better Super Bowl of your life, the game of your life. And how ironic, it maybe almost thought it was funny, that our verse was what it was from Isaiah. For that last part of that verse, let me read it to you again. It says something like this. It says, even youths will faint, and the young will fall exhausted, but those who wait for the Lord will not be exhausted. For those who wait for the Lord shall mount up like eagles, and they shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. Today, the New England Patriots and the New York Giants, and I have even trouble remembering which teams are playing today. Tim Tebow, when he was playing for the Florida Gators, this I know because he's caused somewhat of a controversy in religious circles and in sports circles as well. On his blackout stuff, put that verse of Scripture to remind him that God was the source of his strength. And so many people question whether it's right for anyone to use that verse. They say it's a personal promise of divine strength. But it's been, they actually mic'd the man, if you can believe that, at one point. They put a mic on him to see what he was praying about when he prayed. And what he prayed for was protection for himself and protection for even the opponent players. He was praying for strength, yes, but not for the strength to play football, but rather the strength to do his best in a way that would honor God. He was not always praying for victory, but rather he was praying for the strength to do and to live his life and to play his game and to use his gifts in a way that would honor God. Something else that may not be known by some people is that he hosts, for every one of his games, he hosts for some individual, usually a young person and usually a child. And they are usually children that are in need of healing of one kind or another. He hosts them, he gets them there, he provides their transportation, he provides for their lodging and their food. He visits with them before the game, he visits with them after the game. And he said, though football is important in his life, it's not the most important thing, but rather it is his ability to share his gifts and to share his story in ways that would help and heal and empower others. Those were his goals. And so he serves his Creator in a way that is, in the way that he is uniquely gifted. And in his service, that is how he finds his strength. In our story today, we have a story of Jesus, who we remember last week was in Capernaum. And he had been casting out demons. And then he comes into this other area, and he comes in and he walks into Peter's house. And he walks in and his mother-in-law is sick. And she has a fever. And that day, that was a scary thing because, you know, they didn't have the treatments that we have today. And so her life was in danger. And in spite of everything that Jesus had been doing and was doing, Jesus reached down and took her hand and lifted her up. Can you imagine what that was like for that family and for that community? That they were sitting in despair. They'd done all they could do, and nothing was making it better. And then Jesus came in and lifted her up. How many times in our life have we been in that place of grief or that place of despair, and we've needed to be lifted up? Well, Jesus does that and comes to us in all those places and brings us and lifts us up and helps us to stand in hope and to grow in our faith, so that we can be confident that no matter what our situation is, that we too can stand and be lifted up and stand in hope again. And the interesting thing after that was that after that healing, that he went out after sundown on this Sabbath day. When the Sabbath day sun went down, instead of going down himself and resting, he went out and began to heal others. And he healed them, and he touched them, and he silenced their demons and made them whole again. It didn't matter who it was, whoever came, he healed them, and he touched them. He touched the untouchable. And then when that was all said and done, and it was time to rest his weary head, he did for a short time. And then the story says that in the morning, before the sun was even up, it was still dark yet, Jesus went out into a deserted place, and he began to pray. And the disciples woke and were ready to go, because you see the crowds were surrounding the house again, and they wanted him to come and to heal all of these people as well. And they came up to him and said, "Oh, there you are." And they looked for him and they blurted out, you know, like he wasn't busy. You know what I'm saying? I can't begin to tell you how many times when my kids were growing up and I'd get up early in the morning before they would, so I could have a time to pray. And they go, oh, is Mama busy? No, she's not busy. She's got her eyes closed. And they say, are you busy? No. But that's when I'm at my busiest. And you see, that's when Jesus was at his busiest. Because you know what he was doing? He was connecting to God. The source of who he was, the source of his life, the energy of his life, the source of his ability, the source of his energy, the source of his mission. And that was when he was really busier than any other time. But they didn't think he looked busy, so they came in and they interrupted. They said, come on, we got things for you to do. And you know what he said? No. We're going to go to the next town, because this is what I'm called to do. I'm called to give this message of God's love, of healing for everybody. Not just for some, but people everywhere. And it's always been interesting to me, you know, Jesus didn't heal everybody, did he? But he went from place to place to place to place. And then he empowered others to do that too. And he was very important to him to keep in community. He had his community of disciples. And going to worship, going to the synagogue, as was his usual custom, he went there. Because that, and he spent many times and many hours in isolation and in prayer with God. Because that was all important to his doing. So our message today is two parts. One is that God is our source and our strength and our healing. And God is our energy and our power, and gives us those things and loves us uniquely as we are and were created to be, as gifts of God to all of humanity. And the second part is this. The only way we stay tapped in to that, and the only way we have access to that strength and that power and those gifts and then those abilities is to wait upon the Lord. To wait upon the Lord. When Peter's mother-in-law was healed and Jesus lifted her up, did she go say, how about some Gatorade and some chicken noodle soup? Did she? No, she didn't do that, did she? She got up and she was fully well. She was fully strong. She was fully invigorated. And she went and she started cooking and she started serving them. She started serving the Lord. There's a lot of talk about mainline church. I was talking to the pastor of First United Methodist Church on yesterday about people who are leaving mainline churches in droves. People aren't coming. Churches that are dying. They seem to have lost their spirits, seem to have lost their strength. We're concerned even about our denomination, about people not coming. A whole generation. Look around you. Where are our young people? They're not coming to church. They're not coming to church. And the thing that they miss is this. There's two things. They say they want spirituality, but they don't want religion. Because the church doesn't seem to be practicing much of the Spirit anymore. They think it's become more of an institution. And you know what? I hear it all the time. People will come, they come to church, and later they'll say, I just haven't been fed. So I'm just going to go somewhere else. They go from church to church to church, looking for something. It's looking for something to restore them, something to give them energy, something to give them strength. A lot of times people call me and they'll say, Pastor Jeannie, I'm tired. I'm going to stay home and rest. I need to be rested. I need to be restored. Brothers and sisters, if I don't come to church, if I don't go to church somewhere, I'm tighter than I was before I started. Because this is where I come to be restored. This is where I get my energy. This is where I get my strength. I have many long days, and my energy and strength comes from the work of worship. Did you know that you do get your energy and strength from worshiping? What you do? Did you know that? A lot of people come and they don't want, now I'm not saying just here at Harvest, but I'm talking about everywhere. They come to church and this is what they do. They don't want to pray. They don't want to say anything. They don't want to offer thanksgiving to God. They don't want to sing. They want to sit back and they want to be entertained. They don't like to do liturgy. They don't like to do calls of worship. They don't like to do prayers of confession. They don't want to hear great thanksgivings. They don't want to do all that. You know why? They have to do something. Do you know what liturgy means? It means the work of the people. Worship is your work. You're supposed to come and work. And what happens when you do that? When you come and you work, and you come and you wait upon the Lord, there's two meanings. Wait in terms of service, and wait in terms of simply resting in, praising, connecting. It's just like that battery charger. When that battery runs low, you plug it in, don't you? Worship is your source to plug in, isn't it? That's your source. And when you come and you do your work, what the song goes? Strength will rise, just like that little battery meter. Strength will rise as you wait upon the Lord. As you wait upon the Lord. Right? That's how we do it. And you know what else gives you energy? It's when you go out and you love other people. That gives you love. When you go out and you work on healing and touching other people and praying for them, even though it sometimes gives us the willies, we do it and it happens. Miracles still happen, folks. All the time. And you know it's not you. I know it's not me. I know it's God working through me. It has to be. Because I'm a heathen. I know. And it's an amazing thing to watch God work through God's people. It's an empowering thing to see God's work. And God working through people and using them. And using them like the basketballs are supposed to be used for baskets. And footballs are supposed to be used. And watching them sail through their lives. Making touchdowns and baskets, or whatever you call that in basketball. I was reading this little story by Emily Chandler. She wrote, at one time she saw a beautiful poster. And the poster was a picture of a house cat, little putty cat. And he was looking into a giant mirror. But in the poster, the reflection of the little kitty cat wasn't that of a kitty cat. It was that of a lion. And written on that poster was a quote from Gandhi. It says, "You must become what you seek. You must become what you seek." If you are searching for Jesus to heal you, if we are looking for Jesus to heal us, then we must become healers like Jesus. If you are searching for love, and this church is searching for God's love, then we must become love. If we want to be helped, then we must help others. You see, we must become the good news to one another in our community. And if we're looking for a new life, then we must come alive as Jesus is alive. Think about that this week. Think about that. Work. Let that be your work. spend some time. The children and I made prayer change today about what it is that people pray for. Spend some time praying that God will hold up a mirror to you. And that you will see not what the world sees or what you see with your eyes, but rather the reflection of what God sees in you. The lion that's in you. The gifts that are you. The abilities and talents that God has given you. And then be those. And give them away. And as you wait upon the Lord, and as you rest in the presence of God in prayer, then you too will be empowered to be fully alive. May it be so for you and for me and for this church. Amen.